The year was 1865, and the frontier baked under a hard sun that spared no man, no beast, no patch of land. Dust hung in the air like smoke, clinging to sweat, to clothes, to the throat of anyone who dared breathe. Miles from the nearest settlement, a small ranch clung to life against the desert, its fences sagging, its cattle thinned to bones. A man bent over the dry trough, scooping up a handful of brackish water. He drank slow, careful, the way a man learned when every drop counted. His name was Elias Hargrove, though most in town, if they still remembered him, would call him that broke rancher. The years had not been kind. The war had taken his brother, sickness his wife, the bank his cattle, and now the land itself seemed set to swallow him whole. His shirt was torn at the shoulder, his boots patched so many times they barely kept the ground out. He kept a rifle close by, though most days there was nothing to aim at, but rabbits too lean to waste a bullet on. He had nothing left worth stealing, nothing left worth fighting for. And yet, he was still here. That evening, the horizon bled red as the sun dipped low, streaking the sky with fire. Elias sat on the porch, a lone figure in the silence. A wind carried across the prairie, lifting dust into the air, and with it, something else. He froze, head tilted. A sound, not the low moan of the wind, not the scrape of wood on wood. No, this was different. A sharp cry, distant but cutting. He rose to his feet, rifle in hand, boots crunching over hard earth as he turned toward the canyon that cut jagged into the land a mile from his ranch. Another sound came, shouts, muffled but urgent, then a scream high and thin. His jaw tightened. He could walk back inside, shut the door, and let the desert bury whatever was happening out there. Trouble wasn't his business anymore. But something in the cry tore deeper than he expected. He shouldered the rifle. He started walking. The canyon's walls loomed dark, jagged stone catching the fading light. As Elias drew close, the sounds grew sharper. Boots on gravel, a man's harsh laughter, a girl's terrified voice. He crouched low, the rifle ready, and slipped around the rock outcrop. The sight froze him in place. 3 armed men circled 2 figures pressed against the stone wall. The figures were young, hardly more than 15 or 16, their dark hair tangled, faces streaked with sweat and dirt. They were twins, he saw instantly, eyes sharp and defiant despite their fear, clothes torn from struggle. Apache, without doubt. One of the gunmen spat in the dirt. "Little savages," he sneered, leveling his revolver. The twins pressed tighter together, their backs scraping against stone. Elias's grip tightened on the rifle. He had no stake in this. None. The war between whites and Apaches was older than his troubles. Men on both sides called it justice. All Elias had ever seen was blood. But watching those 2 press against the wall, he felt something stir. A memory, maybe. His brother cornered at Shiloh, his wife's last cough in her cabin, the helplessness of it all. His voice came before he knew it. "That's enough." 3 heads snapped toward him. The men stood frozen for a breath, disbelief painted across their dust-hardened faces. Then one barked out a laugh. "Look here, boys." The beggar rancher decided to grow a spine. Elias stepped from behind the rock, rifle leveled. His boots crunched slow, steady. "Leave them." The tallest of the 3 shifted, gun hand twitching near his holster. His face was long and mean, scar running from his cheek into the stubble on his jaw. "Ain't your fight, Hargrove. Best turn that busted rifle round and walk on back to your shack." The twins' eyes darted to him, wide, waiting. Elias swallowed hard, sweat sliding down his temple. His heart hammered, but his voice came steady. "I ain't saying it again." The scarred man spat. "You'll die broken alone, Elias. Might as well let us put you out of misery." The moment stretched thin, taut as a pulled wire. Elias's finger tightened on the trigger. Then the canyon exploded in sound. The first shot cracked, echo bouncing off stone. Elias fired, the recoil slamming into his shoulder. One of the men jerked, stumbled, dropped his revolver with a cry. "Get him!" the scar man bellowed. Bullets hissed past Elias, sparking off rock. He ducked, fired again, the blast lighting the dusk. Dust choked the air. The twins darted low, scrambling behind a boulder. Elias rolled to cover, breath ragged. His rifle thundered again, sending one of the attackers reeling back, clutching his side. Blood splattered the stone. The scarred man cursed, eyes blazing with hate. He advanced, firing wild. Chips of rock stung Elias's cheek. Elias braced, fired. The bullet tore through the man's hat, snapping it from his head. The scarred man stumbled, stunned, but alive. The twins made a sudden move. One grabbed a fallen revolver. Hand shaking but steady enough to aim. A shot rang out. The scarred man cried out, spinning, his arm grazed. Elias surged forward, swung the rifle but hard, with cracked against skull. The scarred man dropped like a sack of grain. Silence roared in the canyon. Smoke curled in the air, the sharp tang of gunpowder mixing with dust and blood. Elias stood over the fallen men, chest heaving, rifle still smoking. He turned. The twins stared at him, eyes wide not with fear, but with something harder. Suspicion, calculation. They didn't thank him, didn't move, just stared, dark eyes burning. Elias knew bringing them back was madness, knew it as sure as the desert knew drought. Harboring Apaches meant trouble, more than he could afford. And yet, when he looked at them, half-starved and hunted, his boots still carried him homeward. The walk back was slow. The twins followed, silent shadows a few steps behind, glancing over their shoulders at every sound. The sun bled away, leaving only a sharp moon to guide them. By the time they reached the ranch, Elias's legs trembled with exhaustion. He lit a lantern inside the cabin, setting it on the rough-hewn table. The twins hovered near the door, as if the floor itself might swallow them. Elias dug out what little food remained, hardtack, dried beans, a strip of jerky hard as leather. He laid it out without a word. The twins ate quick, eyes flicking between him and the window. They shared the food without quarrel, silent communication passing between them. Elias lowered himself into the chair, rifle across his knees. The cabin creaked in the wind. His own stomach growled, but he ignored it. Finally, one of the twins spoke, her voice low, careful, her English broken but sharp. "Why you help?" Elias looked at her. The lantern flame caught her eyes, fierce and unblinking. He had no answer that made sense, not to himself, not to her. He shrugged, seemed the right thing. Her brow furrowed, as if weighing his words for truth. The other twin murmured something in Apache, too quick for Elias to catch. The first nodded, never breaking her stare at him. "You don't know what you do," she said finally. Elias leaned back, the chair groaning. He looked at the fire on the hearth, the flames licking low. "Hungry. Story of my life." The twins exchanged a glance. Something passing between them Elias couldn't read. A secret, heavy and unspoken. The wind howled outside, rattling the shutters. Elias tightened his grip on the rifle. Somewhere out there, he knew, the men he'd left bleeding in the canyon would come hunting again. And when they did, they'd bring more. He was one man, broken alone. But tonight, under his roof, two strangers sat with fire in their eyes and danger in their shadows. And for the first time in years, Elias felt the weight of a choice pressing on him. Morning broke pale and brittle, the sky washed in gray as if the world itself held its breath. Elias Hargrove stepped outside, boots sinking into dry earth, the cool air sharp in his lungs. The twins trailed him at a distance, shadows bound by silence. They did not speak to him, not in words he understood, but their eyes missed nothing. Every movement of his hands, every glance, every pause, they watched. The ranch creaked with its own weariness. Fences sagged, roof shingles shifted with the wind, and the well gave only a thin trickle. Elias moved through his chores with a stubborn rhythm of habit, mending wire with callous fingers, tossing feed to the few cattle still living. The twins, at first hesitant, soon joined. One fetched wood without being asked. The other drew water, balancing the bucket with strength that surprised him. It unsettled Elias how quickly they adapted. They did not act like children rescued from death. They carried themselves as though every task, no matter how small, was a matter of survival. He felt in the way they kept glancing to the horizon, Ears pricked for sounds he could not hear. When the day waned, Elias found them perched on the corral fence, speaking in low tones. Their words flowed swift and certain in Apache, a language Elias knew only in fragments. Now and then, their gazes flicked toward him. Once, he caught a name repeated in their whispers, but he could not pin its meaning. Inside the cabin, over a meager supper, Elias tried again. "You two got kin nearby? A village? Someone who'll be looking for you." The twins exchanged a glance. The one who spoke more English, the sister, answered with careful precision. "No, not here. We cannot go back." Elias frowned. "Then where—" She said nothing more, only lowered her eyes to the tin plate. The other twin muttered something sharp in their tongue. Elias thought he caught the tone of reproach, but he couldn't be sure. That night, Elias lay awake, the fire's glow casting restless shadows against the log walls. He heard them whispering again, soft as wind, secrets traded beyond his reach. He rolled onto his side, staring at the rifle prop by the door. He had the feeling he'd invited not just trouble, but a storm into his home. The prairie outside was too quiet. Elias's gut told him quiet never lasted. By the week's end, trouble showed its hand. It began with hoof prints in the dust beyond the ridge. Fresh, sharp-edged, too many to be wanderers. Elias crouched by them at dawn, the twins standing behind him. He brushed a callous hand across the impressions, jaw tightening. "Riders," he muttered. "Half a dozen, maybe more." The twins' eyes darkened. One whispered something quick to the other, and Elias didn't need translation. Fear had a universal tongue. That evening, as the sun sank low, Elias caught the flicker of firelight on the horizon. A camp. His chest tightened. Those men he'd fought in the canyon, they hadn't died. They'd gone to ground, healed, and now they'd returned with friends. The rancher barred the door, set his rifle near, and lowered the lantern wick till the cabin dimmed to near darkness. The twins huddled close to the hearth, faces solemn. Outside, the coyotes cried, but beneath it Elias swore he heard something else. The faint ring of iron on iron, a distant hoarse whinny carried by wind. Sleep didn't come. Elias sat upright most of the night, back to the wall, rifle across his knees. His mind drifted to memories he thought long buried. The trenches of war, the cries of men left behind, his wife's fevered hands slipping from his grasp. Always he had been powerless. Always life had stripped from him the things he cared for. Not this time, he told himself. Not if he could help it. When dawn broke, he rose, jaw set. "If they come, we'll be ready." The twins did not flinch. The sister spoke quietly. "They will come. They want us." Elias studied her. "Why? You're just kids." The brother answered for the first time in English, his voice low but firm. "Not kids. Blood of chief. Father dead. Enemies hunt us." Elias's chest went cold. Chief's children. He looked between them. Saw it now. The proud tilled her chins, the unbroken fire in their eyes. The sister leaned forward, voice steady as stone. "If we die, our people scatter. No more tribe. That is why they hunt us." Elias's hands clenched on the rifle stock. He had stumbled into a fight far larger than himself. These were not just orphans clinging to life. They were heirs to a nation gasping for breath. He exhaled slow, the weight of it pressing down. "And here I thought I was just rescuing a couple of lost kids." The twins said nothing. Their silence was heavier than words. That night, Elias stood on the porch, eyes fixed on the dark horizon. A lantern glowed faint in the distance, closer now. He spat into the dirt, heart pounding. The hunters had found their trail. The storm broke on the third night. It began with a howl of wind, sharp and cutting, driving dust across the land like smoke. Elias stoked the hearth fire higher, its flames snapping in protest against the draft. The twins sat cross-legged on the floor, their shadows dancing on the log walls. Their eyes burned with a resolve that unsettled him. The sister broke the silence. "You cannot send us away now. Too late." Elias rubbed a hand across his weary face. "I should never have brought you here. Men are out there right now with blood on their minds, and I got no army to stop them." "You have us," she said. The brother nodded. His hand rested on the revolver they had taken from the canyon, the weapon sitting in his lap like it belonged there. Elias shook his head. "Your children." The girl's gaze did not waver. "We are warriors' blood." The fire popped, sparks spitting. Elias stared at them, at the raw certainty in their faces. They weren't begging for his protection. They were demanding his allegiance. The sister leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper. "There's more you must know. A secret." Elias frowned but said nothing. She reached into her worn satchel, drawing out a small bundle wrapped in doeskin. She unfolded it with care, revealing what lay inside. A medallion wrought of silver and turquoise, etched with markings that shimmered in the firelight. Elias leaned forward, breath catching. "This belonged to our father," she said. "It is more than memory. It is symbol. If we live to bring it to our people, they will follow. If we die and it is lost, the tribe dies too." Elias stared at the medallion, the weight of history radiating from it. He imagined the men outside, their greed, their hunger for power. They weren't after revenge. They were after this. The brother spoke, his English halting but fierce. "You see now, we cannot run. We must survive. With you." Elias sat back, heart thundering. For years he had lived as though the world had nothing left for him. But here, under his roof, sat the last hope of people. And somehow, by chance or fate, he had been chosen as their shield. The fire snapped, shadows flickering across his weathered face. He closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them again. "All right," he said. "We'll see this through, one way or another." The sister gave a single nod, her expression unreadable. Outside, the wind died, leaving a silence sharp enough to cut. Then, from the darkness, came the flare of a torch. Another, and another. Elias rose, rifle in hand, eyes narrowing as the glow of fire grew brighter beyond the ridge. The hunters had come at last. The twins moved to his side, silent and unflinching. Together, they watched the torches spread across the horizon, a line of fire advancing toward the lonely ranch. And in that moment, Elias knew the fight was no longer just for survival. It was for something greater, something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. The night ahead would demand everything, and he was ready. The night bled fire. Elias Hargrove stood on his porch with a rifle steady in his hands, his boots planted in the dust. Across the dark prairie, torches bobbed like angry stars, a slow-moving line crawling toward him. The riders came with purpose, their shadows long and merciless under the moon. Behind Elias, the twins waited in silence. The sister's eyes gleamed sharp in the lantern glow, her jaw set with steel. The brother gripped the revolver, fingers pale but steady. Neither flinched at the sight of the fire creeping closer. Elias swallowed the dryness in his throat. He had known this day would come, though not so soon. He could have sent them away, left them to fend for themselves. But now it was too late. Their fight was his fight. The torches halted 100 yards from the ranch. Shapes broke away from the glow, horsemen dismounting, boots crunching the earth. Then came a voice, deep and hard, carried across the distance. "Hargrove, you got something don't belong to you. Send out the redskin brats, and maybe we let you live." The words twisted in Elias's gut, but he did not lower his rifle. He raised his voice, rough from dust and years of silence. "They ain't yours to take." A laugh cut the night, cruel, sharp. "You think one broke-down rancher can stop us?" The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the low hiss of the torches. Elias felt the twins' presence at his back, their stillness like drawn blades. Then, without warning, the night erupted. A shot cracked, splintering wood from the porch post near Elias's head. He fired back, the rifle's thunder rolling across the plain. The fight had begun. The attackers surged forward, shadows weaving between torches. Bullets tore through the air, shattering the cabin shutters, driving sparks from the rocks. Elias ducked low, fired again, felt the recoil hammer his shoulder. One man went down screaming, torch rolling from his hand into the dust. The twins moved like shadows of their own. The brother fired a revolver from the window, his shots wild but brave. The sister crouched by the hearth, feeding rounds into Elias's rifle as fast as he could hand it off. Their faces were fierce, lit by fire and resolve. The attackers pressed hard, circling the ranch. Bullets punched holes through the walls, thudding into it inches from where Elias crouched. Smoke filled the cabin, acrid and choking. Back! Elias barked, shoving the twins deeper inside. He slammed the door shut as a torch smashed against the frame, fire licking at the wood. He grabbed a blanket, beat down the flames, cursing through gritted teeth. More shots ripped through the night. The ranch yard filled with chaos. Horses screaming, men shouting, flames crackling where torches struck the barn. Elias's cattle bawled in panic, hooves pounding as the corral splintered. Elias burst from the cabin, rifle blazing. He dropped a rider from the saddle, the man toppling into the dust. Another lunge from the shadows, knife flashing. Elias swung the rifle stock hard, the crack of bone loud as thunder. He staggered back, chest heaving, blood pounding in his ears. The fight surged like a tide. For every man who fell, two more seemed to rise. The ranch burned around them, smoke curling into the star-strewn sky. Through it all, the twins stood fast. The brother fought at Elias's side, his small frame taut with courage far beyond his years. The sister never wavered, her eyes bright with fire as she reloaded, shouted warnings, pulled Elias back when bullets hissed too close. But Elias knew they couldn't hold forever. Already the attackers had pushed them to the edge. The barn blazed high, sparks raining down like stars. Shadows closed in from all sides. And then in that chaos, Elias made his choice. "Get to the horses," he shouted over the roar of fire. "Now, we ride." The twins hesitated only a heartbeat before obeying. Elias covered their retreat, firing until the rifle clicked empty. He hurled it aside, drew his revolver, kept firing as the twins darted to the corral. Their horses reared wild-eyed, but the twins mounted swift and sure. Elias swung into his own saddle, a bullet tearing past his arm as he did. Pain flared hot, but he gritted his teeth. With a shout, he drove the horse forward, the twins close beside him. Bullets snapped through the air as they burst from the burning yard, flames throwing their shadows long across the desert. Behind them, the ranch groaned under fire, its timbers splitting, its life burning away. Elias did not look back. The night swallowed them whole. The prairie stretched endless beneath the moon, the land silvered and silent save for the pounding of hooves. Elias leaned low in the saddle, every breath a ragged rasp, every muscle screaming. The twins rode tight beside him, their eyes fixed ahead, their horses flying like arrows loose from the bow. Shots cracked behind them, faint but closing. The hunters weren't giving up. Torches bobbed in pursuit, flickers of fire cutting through the night. Elias's arm throbbed where the bullet had grazed him. His shirt stuck wet to his side, blood mixing with sweat. But he urged the horse harder, spurring it across the barren plain. The land tilted downward toward the canyon, shadows yawning wide. "Down there," he barked. The three plunged into the ravine, hooves striking sparks on stone. The walls rose high, swallowing the moonlight, cloaking them in darkness. Their pursuers' shouts echoed close behind, the thunder of hooves like a drumbeat chasing them deeper. At a fork, Elias jerked the reins, veering left. Rocks scattered, the path narrow and treacherous. One wrong step, and the canyon would take them all. The twins followed without question, their horses leaping sure-footed along the trail. The hunters pressed close. A bullet sparked off the stone near Elias's head, the report deafening in the canyon walls. He fired back blind, the muzzle flash lighting the rock for a split second, then darkness again. They rode hard until the canyon opened onto a plateau. In the distance, faint lights twinkled, fires that burned steady, not the wild flares of pursuit. Elias's heart lurched. "Your people?" he shouted over the pounding hooves. The sister's eyes shone. She nodded once. Relief wore with dread in Elias's chest. They had found safety or judgment. He had no illusions about how Apaches would greet a white man riding into their camp with the children of a chief. The hunters broke from the canyon behind them, still in pursuit. Elias dug his heels into his horse, the twins racing beside him. The campfires grew brighter, nearer, until figures rose from the shadows, armed warriors bristling with spears and rifles. The twins cried out in their tongue, voices fierce and commanding. The warriors surged forward, encircling them, weapons raised, but not striking. Recognition flared in their eyes at the sight of the medallion, the sister lifted high. The hunters skidded to a halt at the edge of the plateau. They had no desire to ride into a wall of warriors. Cursing, they wheeled their horses, retreating into the night. Silence fell, broken only by the ragged breaths of horses and men. Elias slid from the saddle, his knees nearly buckling. The twins dismounted too, rushing into the embrace of the warriors who pressed close. Hands touched their faces, voices rose and fierce, relieved cries. The medallion passed from the sister's hand to an elder who held it as if it were flame itself. Then the crowd turned to Elias. He stood alone, dust-streaked, bloodied, his rifle gone, his revolver empty. Dozens of dark eyes fixed on him, unreadable. The air was heavy with silence. The twins stepped forward, placing themselves between him and the warriors. The sister spoke in Apache, her voice carrying clear and strong. Her brother added his words, gestures sharp, insistent. The elder studied Elias, face weathered and grave. At last, he spoke in halting English. They say you save them. You carry their lives, their blood. Elias swallowed, throat dry. They saved me too. The elder's eyes narrowed, searching his face. Then he lifted the medallion high, firelight flashing from its silver. This man fought for our future, he declared to his people. He is no enemy tonight. A murmur rippled through the warriors, some skeptical, some moved, but none raised a weapon. Elias sagged, relief and exhaustion flooding him. His eyes found the twins, their faces fierce with pride and something else, trust. For the first time in years, Elias felt the weight of despair lift from his shoulders. He had nothing left to his name, not land, not cattle, not gold. But he had stood for something greater, and it had not been in vain. As dawn broke, streaking the sky with gold, Elias stood at the edge of the Apache camp, his body broken, his soul remade. He looked back once toward the horizon where his ranch had burned. Then he looked forward, to the faces of the twins, to the people whose future he had carried through fire. And he knew at last that he was no longer penniless. He was rich in the only way that mattered.